Are you seriously asking me to sell my family home because your friends might think it's outdated? I couldn't believe the words coming out of her mouth. My fiancée, Madison, 29, was sitting across from me in the sunlit living room, her eyes wide with what she clearly thought was reasoned urgency. I, Ethan, 34, had spent the better part of my morning staring at the mahogany shelves lining my great-grandfather's study, trying to gather my thoughts before this confrontation, and yet here we were arguing over the house I had inherited, the place that held every echo of my family's history. Madison leaned forward, hands gripping the edge of the coffee table as if she could physically nudge me into agreement. Ethan, the house. It's old. The floors creak, the windows rattle, the plumbing groans. Honestly, our friends will judge. They all live in these sleek, modern places. Why should we be stuck in a museum? Her voice dripped with exasperation, but beneath it I detected that familiar undertone. One I had learned over 3 years together meant this was about her image, not practicality. I took a slow sip of my whiskey, letting the warmth of it settle as I tried to organize my thoughts. This house wasn't just walls and beams, it was a legacy, built in the 1920s by my great-grandfather, who had turned a small milling operation into a thriving family business. It had survived generations, wars, and economic collapses. On the shelves behind me, the founder's ledger rested, a massive leather-bound testament to every detail of this house's construction, from the first growth timber cut in the forest to the wages paid to the carpenters. To Madison, it was a pile of wood and plaster. To me, it was the backbone of my family's story. I love this house, I said finally, my voice steady despite the surge of anger bubbling beneath. It's paid off. It's the only real asset I have. Selling it isn't just financial, it's personal. You're not just asking me to move. You're asking me to erase generations of my family's history for what? For appearances. Madison's brow furrowed. She looked almost offended. Appearances matter, Ethan. We need a home that's fresh, that's ours, not some old relic that smells like dusty books and creaking floors. Think about the wedding. Think about the life we want. Don't you want a clean slate? Her words should have stung, but instead, a strange clarity washed over me. This wasn't a negotiation. This was an ultimatum disguised as concern. My hand traced the edge of the library table, fingers brushing over the engraved initials of my great-grandfather, and I realized I had a choice to make, not just about the house, but about my future, my principles, and the person I was willing to spend my life with. I'll think about it, I said softly, letting her victory linger in the air for a moment. Madison's face brightened immediately, her lips curving into a triumphant smile. She didn't see the storm brewing in me, the resolve hardening like concrete in my chest. I would think about it all right. But while she dreamed of tearing down and rebuilding, I had already begun charting a course to protect the legacy she so casually dismissed by the next morning. I had called my sister, Claire, a sharp, fiercely protective lawyer. Claire, hypothetically, if I needed to protect a house from being sold by someone else, what options do I have? I asked, careful to frame it as a thought experiment. Claire's voice crackled with both concern and incredulity. Ethan, are you serious? You're thinking about putting it in an irrevocable trust. Her words were sharp, but they struck a chord. Yes, that was exactly what I was thinking. This house, my family's history, would remain untouchable. Even Madison, even anyone, could never liquidate it. Not now, not ever. That afternoon, I pored over trust documents, legal options, and the intricacies of estate planning. Every clause, every stipulation, was a small victory away to ensure that the walls I loved, the floors that creaked, and the ledger that chronicled generations of labor would remain untouched. By evening, the house, the land, every brick and beam was no longer just mine. It was secured, protected by law, untouchable by entitlement, beauty, or vanity. Madison had no idea, and as I sat back in my great-grandfather's leather armchair, whiskey in hand, I felt a complex mix of relief and dread. I had dodged an aesthetic bullet, but the cost to my engagement, to my relationship, was yet to be revealed. Madison returned from her weekend getaway with her bridesmaids, practically radiating excitement. She had been texting me non-stop links to $1.2 million modern builds, floor plans she had personally drawn, ideas about demolition, and how long we could temporarily stay with her mother while the new house rose from the ashes of my great-grandfather's home. My stomach sank with each message. It wasn't just enthusiasm anymore. It was execution. Her words weren't asking for discussion. They were marching orders. That evening, she arrived, dragging her mother, Victoria, 51, behind her like an ominous shadow. Madison's grin was triumphant, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Victoria, ever the enforcer, carried a bottle of champagne as though it were a peace offering or perhaps a weapon. "Liam, we're here to celebrate. You're finally making a smart move," Victoria said, her tone sugary but sharp. Madison added, practically vibrating with glee, "Honey, the realtor is already scheduled for Friday. We can appraise the lot, figure out demolition. Isn't it exciting?" I felt that familiar chill, the kind that sinks into your bones and makes your chest tight. This wasn't a conversation. This was a takeover. "Sit down," I said slowly, gesturing to the creaky sofa that had supported generations of my family. They obeyed, though Madison's foot tapped impatiently. I looked at both of them, feeling a cold clarity settle in. "I cancelled the realtor," I said plainly. Their smiles froze simultaneously. "What do you mean, cancelled?" Madison's voice wavered, disbelief flashing in her eyes. "The appraisal, the builder, everything." Victoria leaned forward, her face a mask of controlled fury. "You can't do this, Liam. You're making a mistake. This house is just a pile of sticks. You're throwing away opportunity." "I'm glad you brought that up," I said, keeping my voice steady, "because it's not mine to sell anymore. It's in an irrevocable trust. Claire is the trustee. The property, the land, the house sit cannot be sold. It cannot be used as collateral. It is protected permanently." Silence. I had never experienced such profound, immediate silence. Madison's face drained of color. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, trying to form words, but failing. You gave it away," she finally managed. Victoria's jaw tightened. "What do you mean, irrevocable trust?" "Call Claire. Tell her to undo it now." I shook my head slowly. "You don't understand. That's the point. It cannot be undone. Not by you, not by me, not by anyone who thinks this house is just a cash opportunity. I put it there to protect the family legacy, because this isn't just wood and plaster, it's history. It's my heritage, and it's safe." Madison's voice rose, trembling with rage. "You lied to me. You tricked me." Her hands shook, and her words became more frantic with each passing second. Victoria's tone cut through the air like glass. Ethan, think about what you've done. This changes everything. Your engagement, the house, her future. I remained seated, calm, cold. The realization that staying engaged to Madison was no longer about love, but about appeasing entitlement and aesthetics, struck me with brutal clarity. I've been thinking, I said softly, about whether we're engaged to each other or to a house transaction dressed up as a relationship. The engagement is on hold indefinitely until I figure that out. The reaction was instantaneous. Madison stormed across the room, her fury barely restrained. She grabbed a decanter from the mantel, swinging it toward the fireplace. Glass shattered, fragments skittering across the polished wood floor. You bastard. You're ruining my life. You're trapping me. You will regret this. Her shrieks echoed in the cavernous rooms, ricocheting off the walls lined with generations of family memory. I stood there, watching the shards of glass glint in the lamplight, and felt a strange mixture of emptiness and relief. For a moment, the rage, the sense of violation, the demands not of it mattered. I had dodged a bullet the size of a mansion. My family, my heritage, my homes, and for the first time, I truly questioned if Madison had ever been the partner I thought she was. In the days that followed, the fallout was swift and aggressive. Madison and Victoria attempted multiple maneuvers harassment at my workplace. Attempts to manipulate me into undoing the trust. Even trying to claim emotional distress and promissory estoppel in a ludicrously overblown legal threat. Each attempt crumbled under the weight of fact, law, and my sister Claire's meticulous strategy. Security footage, police reports, and ironclad legal documentation left them with nothing. Every move they made to assert control only revealed the truth. Entitlement could not erase legacy, and through it all, the house remained untouched. The mahogany shelves, the ledger, the creaking floors, they bore silent witness to the chaos outside, impervious to greed or aesthetic opinion. I spent those nights repairing minor damage from the decanter incident, sanding floors, fixing plaster, and cataloguing the ledger with a specialist bookbinder. It was quiet work, meticulous work, and in it I found a strange peace. The house had saved me, not just my inheritance, but my perspective on what was truly worth protecting. Weeks passed, and the dust of confrontation began to settle, though not entirely. Madison and Victoria, true to form, had engaged a high-powered attorney, a shark the size of which I had only ever seen on billboards. They sent a demand letter that was a work of art in audacity, claiming promissory estoppel, emotional distress, and even a claim on the engagement ring, valuing it at twice its actual cost. I read the letter once, twice, then let it lie on the kitchen counter. The absurdity of it, both infuriating and laughable. Claire, my sister and the trustee of the house, handled the response with the precision of a master strategist. Her letter was concise, brutal, and on point. The house was mine, secured long before any engagement. The trust could not be broken. Madison's claims about emotional distress were baseless. The engagement itself was effectively paused at my discretion. The ring, a conditional gift, was legally retained. Any attempt to pursue frivolous claims would result in countersuits for legal fees and a civil harassment restraining order. By the next morning, their lawyer, once confident, had already retreated with a single-sentence email acknowledging defeat. Hearing of their retreat brought no triumph, only relief. The ordeal had cost me roughly $6,000 in legal fees, family rates. but the protection it afforded the house was priceless. The security system repairs, the replacement of the antique decanter, and a minor sanding of the floors were mere inconveniences in comparison. Most importantly, my home, the creaky sanctuary of family history, remained intact, untouchable by entitlement or greed. Madison had revealed herself not just to me, but to the world I inhabited. She was incapable of partnership. She viewed relationships as transactions, and heritage as a commodity. In the aftermath, word spread quietly among mutual acquaintances. Madison had racked up significant personal debt pre-spending against the supposed sale of my house, abandoned her apartment, and returned to live with Victoria. Friends who once flattered her judgment and tastes distanced themselves, unimpressed with a 30-year-old woman in financial and emotional turmoil. The image she had so meticulously curated evaporated almost overnight. Meanwhile, my house continued to stand, a testament to generations past, a beacon of resilience. I sold the engagement ring, a symbolic severance of a chapter one now knew had no future. The $14 I recouped barely mattered. It was the gesture, the final closure, that resonated. Every day I worked on the house, sanding floors, repairing plaster, restoring shelves, and cataloguing the ledger. Each creak in the floorboards, each scent of old wood, became a reminder of why I had acted as I did. Not just to protect a house, but to safeguard a lineage, a history, and the values that had been instilled in me. Looking back, the events had forced a stark clarity on my life and choices. I had faced the question, what is more important, love or legacy? Madison's actions made the answer painfully obvious. The house, with all its quirks and imperfections, was more than stone and timber. It was identity. It was home. And as I sit in the study each evening, whiskey in hand, tracing my fingers along the spines of books older than I am, I feel a deep, unshakable peace. The house saved me from financial ruin, from manipulation, and from a life that would have stripped me of my history for the sake of appearances. It is quiet now, save for the occasional creak of the floorboards and the whisper of wind through original glass panes. The ledger sits restored, its spine sturdy, pages intact. My family legacy is secure, and I am, finally, unburdened by the expectations of someone incapable of valuing what truly matters. Madison is a chapter closed, a lesson harsh but invaluable. And as I stand in the doorway of my ancestral home, the sunset casting a golden glow on the creaky wood floors, I realize this. Protection, courage, and integrity are not just ideals, they are the pillars of home. My home, my legacy, my sanctuary, and nothing, not even love, will ever take that from me.